calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on Sunday.
This is about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
True crime host here on the Fair to Stop podcast channel. It's Andrea Upplates.
Hello.
Good evening to you.
Good evening to you.
It's good to see you tonight. It is raining here like cats and dogs. My internet is absolutely bonkers, and I got kicked off right before that intro ended. So hopefully the weather will hold off for this show and I don't get the internet. Is the weather shit there too or no?
No, it's cloudy right now, but it rained a little bit earlier on. I just want to say that I saw that Sarah Kelch is leaving us because she's at a Matchbox 20 concert, and I'm on record to say that's just not okay.
Bro, I'm so jealous. Talk about rain, and it's raining men on her right now. Matchbox 20, that's where all the dudes are tonight at the Matchbox 20 concert. Rip Pack's in there. By the way, Rip Pack is got a Wolfpack sale going on right now. And I'm sure he'll put that in the chats what exactly it is, or it goes through 4th of July. I know I mention Rip Pack all the time on this show. I'm just I'm an avid user of Rip Pack. And so people see me use it all the time. Matter of fact, my buddy just went backpacking around Mexico, and I put him on the way with some Rip Pack. I guess there's mountains in Mexico.
That's an adventurous buddy.
Yeah, I think it's like South Mexico, like in the mountains of Mexico, wherever there's mountains. Tonight's show, though, is brought to you by Stamps.com. Stamps.com. If you got a little small business, when every person, every moment, every penny counts, you can't afford to take any of them for granted. Not your time, not your money. And that's where Stamps.com gets it. Because for the last 25 years, they've been helping businesses just like ours save you time and money. So you can focus on your business knowing that Stamps.com has all your postage needs covered with premium discounts and great rates. With Stamps.com, all you need is a computer and a printer. They send you a scale. They send you like a little digital scale. It's so cool. And you can schedule your pickups from your house. So I do all the little gifty packaging stuff right here from the confines of my own studio. But right now, you can do like a 4-week trial plus some free postage and a digital scale if you head over to www.stamps.com/Wolfpack. That's www.stamps.com/Wolfpack. And you can get a 4-week trial, free postage, and a digital scale. So you can weigh out your mail and whatever other things you kind of, a couple of grams of flour, maybe a little sugar for your cookies. So
For your baking needs.
That's what I use my digital scale for. So what is that white powdery substance on your digital scale? That's not going to be cocaine, is it? No, that's creatine. That's workout powder. I've been weighing out my workout. Sir, you have not worked out in 2 decades. That's creatine. And that's a real story. That's what happened. Lots of super chats tonight. James Wells, $5. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Well, James.
Oh, thanks, James.
Damn it, James. I'm glad you called.
Anytime.
Poke in, Mr. Wells. I had an abusive uncle named Mr. Wells. Used to beat the fuck out of my aunt until he hung himself to death. And then my aunt died as well from like a pseudo-suicide. I guess if you do a lot of alcohol and prescription drugs at the same time, they just rule that a heart attack, even if you do it on purpose, which I like that for religious purposes, because I don't think suicides go to heaven, right? That's what the Catholics or the Jews, one of you guys believe that. So if that religion is right, I hope that they go on what the medical examiner puts on the paper and not probably what reality is. So we'll just say that she died of a apparent heart attack, just like Elvis on the toilet. And then somebody else, 20 Bones. Thank you. Who was that? Who gave us Amy? Who was that? Amy Rooker. Amy Rooker.
Thank you.
You know what Amy Rooker rhymes with? Booker. which kind of sounds like Bookie, mybookie.com. Mybookie.com starts sponsoring our show, by the way, July 1st. They want to work with us on 2 of the fights in July. So just found that out literally hours before the show today. Mybookie.com called, did a little onboarding with them. They've got 2 fights coming up. And the last fight is the Poirier fight. Poirier, I don't know, UFC dude. And they want to do, like, they're going to drop us some money in an account so that us team members can play around and bet on mybookie.com. And then all of our listeners can bet with us. And we can bet on, like, what color shorts they're going to wear, or like how long they're going to sing the national anthem, or how many times the ring girls walk back and forth, like all the fun bets that we can do. And maybe we can do like a live watch along with the fight and see like who wins and who loses and stuff like that. So anyway, big shout, lots of new sponsors, but ghostbed.com is who brings you this every week without fail. It doesn't matter if it's first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. It's always Ghostbed for us. Bed's made in the good old USA right now, 35% off. And just you wait, because they have 4th of July sales coming. And you know they go all in, because why? Their bed's made in the good old USA. Nothing more patriotic than that. So I'm excited. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do for 4th of July. Next week is our 1-year anniversary. Trying to put something together special. I don't know if Andrea is going to do the show topless, if I'm going to do it topless, if we're going to have some kind of a crazy murderer on, or somebody who's been murdered. I don't know. We're trying to put something together. So stay tuned for next week. You're not going to want to miss being in the live chats on YouTube's. I know that 99% of you guys are audio listeners. But we do, I don't know, we have a bunch of people in the chats tonight, a bunch of paid members: David Osborne, Amy Rooker, Carly, Jonathan, TJR, the list goes on and on and on, David J. I'm not going to keep going because I'll be here all night, but thank you guys. Next week, though, if you're an audio listener, get in the live chats, because we're going all in. It's freaky fan Tuesday next week. Fantastic Tuesday in the live chats. You know what? Maybe we should draw on ourselves. Maybe we should get out the magic marker. If we can't get the special guests we're trying to lock in, maybe we just pull out those magic markers like I did a year ago, and do super chats for a good cause. And that good cause is lining our pockets while we draw phallic images all over our bodies. I'm not below that, though. I'm not above it or below it. I'll do anything. Tonight's show is Missing and Unsolved. You know I hate that, Andrea. You know
I know.
I fucking hate that. I hate it when it's missing and unsolved. I wish all these cases were solved. And I wish they weren't missing.
So do I.
It always breaks my heart. But you know what? At least when it's missing and unsolved, there's a chance. There's a glimmer of hope. There's a light maybe at the end of that tunnel. When they're just, then there's no chance. So this one is the Millbrook twins. That sounds sad already.
It is.
Literally losing pep in my step as I read that title. Do we have any true crime news? I do have one piece of news, though, that I wanted to cover really quick. But
yeah, we'll cover the news. Also, if you're in the chats or listening right now, the missing twins or victims, however we presume, sister is watching now. So everybody be mindful of that, please. Yeah. So in terms of, I don't have true crime stuff, but
Amy Rooker, I never said hooker. Amy. I said booker. And that rhymes with my bookie.
You said booker for my bookie.
I was trying to throw in a my bookie shameless plug there a couple of weeks later. But I mean, if you feel like I called you a hooker and you want an apology, 1,000 sorries to the Titanic and back in a cheap white submarine. I'm sorry.
Yes. All right. So we're going to talk a little pop culture really quickly, and then you can get to your piece of crime. The story we're talking about tonight took place in 1990. So we have, first and foremost, maybe the most important bit of news out of 1990 was the movie Ghost. The movie Ghost came out. Unchained Melody made a new appearance. Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze. It doesn't get much better than that. The Simpsons aired in May of that year as well. And Cheers was celebrating its 9th season. Were you a fan of Cheers?
Yeah.
I like Cheers.
I like to go to Cheers. We had a Cheers in our in our town. And my
I've been there.
And my dad was a postman. So I don't know. Last time I was there, I bought a maybe like a fuzzy navel. I don't know. I bought some like ridiculously homosexual style drink. And I gave it to a Marine and made like flirtatious gestures at him. And this was back in the in the Salmonized days. So what, 2007, 2008. And the dude didn't take the joke funny. And maybe he's a little homophobic, came over and decked me right off of the stool, and I was kicked out. Even though the bartender's the one that delivered the drink for me.
Yeah.
I was just doing it because he was a Marine, and he had his little Marine Corps hat and his little Marine Corps t-shirt that was a schmedium. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just felt like being a little Army, I don't know, just a young Army guy.
Yeah.
And I was too used to having Sam with me, the big ogre, to fight my battles, and I got punched and they kicked me out. So that was the last time I went to Cheers.
He's not fighting battles. All right.
He looks mean.
The show A Different World was out. Sinead O'Connor, you want to sing it?
Don't go chasing water.
Not TLC. Sinead O'Connor.
Oh, Sinead O'Connor. And isn't it ironic?
Nope. Stop.
Don't you think?
Nope.
A little too. I really do think.
Nothing compares, right? There you go.
Nothing compares
to you. Do you know who wrote that? Prince wrote that. All right.
That was going to be my first guess.
Boxing. So I always bring up Tyson when I can. So Mike Tyson became the year's highest earner with $28.6 million to his name.
Damn.
Baseball, we had Nolan Ryan, was 43 years old then and threw his sixth career no-hitter for the Texas Rangers. Nolan
Ryan, the GOAT. There was a lot of GOATs in the 90s because you had Michael Jordan was.
Yeah, some Cal Ripken.
Oh, yeah, dude. One of my faves.
Me too.
Faves. Got his autograph.
I saved every one of his cards.
Handsome man.
Right?
Handsome man. Now, let me ask you this really quick. And this is, before we get really serious. Hit it or quit it on Mike Tyson in his prime?
God, no. He's terrifying.
That would be like sleeping with a lion. You know what I mean? Like it might be fun and cuddly and playful for a minute. But at any second, that thing could rip you to shreds.
Yeah, I don't think it was fun. I don't think that's fun.
Yeah.
No.
Be exciting, maybe. Stick with Cal Ripken.
Yeah, it's a safer bet.
Carly says karaoke night. She's dropping 5 bones. Everybody's in a good mood on this gloomy, rainy.
They sure are.
Friday, Tuesday night. Oh, might as well be Friday.
We have the Hubble Space Telescope, first placed in orbit. That's a fun one.
David Osborne says Nolan Ryan could throw 108 miles an hour. Now, I read something recently that it might have been faster because the radars didn't actually have the technology to keep up with the ball.
They did not.
So that pitch could have been like 110, 111.
Yep.
Whew. Yep. That's fast.
It's the best.
That's real fast.
And in terms of crime in 1990, Daniel Harold Rowling, otherwise known as the Gainesville Ripper, was a serial killer, murdered 5 students in Gainesville, Florida over 4 days in August of 1990. So that's our big crime news of that year. What is it you wanted to speak on?
It's not important. I was just going to say that there was a missing submarine.
I can't. The reason I can't talk about that
is because the Titanic went down.
The
Titanic went down in the 90s, so it coincides with your history news. But yeah, right. What a nightmare of nightmare stories. And being that this show is Night Shift, and we like to talk all things night shifty, and I'm sure this will be a tale that we will have on Night Shift many, many moons from now. Where your children are listening to Night Shift to stay awake while on the night shift. But yeah, I cannot, unless it was just like a depressurization, like they all just got exploded. That's best case scenario. And that's terrible scenario. But every other scenario, it's like what, they run out of oxygen in the next hour.
Actually, everything else is worse. You know
what I mean? I'm saying.
Presuming that they're not going to survive, I would much rather just explode without knowing to anticipate it.
Right, but if not, they've only got like minutes left of oxygen. Because I mean, like a couple hours ago, they were down to like 70 minutes of oxygen, if they were surviving on oxygen underneath the ocean. Now there is a slight chance that they're floating, and the currents,
regardless,
they're up and down.
They're bolted in, so they have minimal. Like I think that if I'm not mistaken, they bolted them in from the outside. And they have minimal water, 12 ounces per person of water.
Something like that. And I heard a thing on TikTok today that says that there's no poop plan on that thing.
Oh, that's the least of their worries right now.
Really? Until you're sitting in there for 48 hours and there's shit all around your feet.
Well, you've got to think that carbon dioxide is going to rise.
Now you're just breathing it in.
You know, like they were talking about it earlier that like the scrubbers for the CO2 are not going to be working properly now. So like your CO2 is rising, you're starting to get, a little out of your mind, it makes me feel sick to my stomach. I had this discussion yesterday with someone, kind of like a would you rather.
Yeah.
Because while that is so difficult to think about, and like I said, it's claustrophobic, something even scarier to me, always, there are going to be plenty in the chats that disagree, but is space. So space actually makes me more claustrophobic. Like the vastness of it makes me almost not be able to breathe. So would you rather be floating in a capsule, somehow something went wrong in space, and you're either going to make it or you're going to vaporize or whatever until your oxygen's out and whatever, or this thing in the ocean?
I don't know. I think space, because at least you got shit to look at.
Or nothing at all. What do you think you're looking at?
The moon, the sun, the earth.
You look at the sun. What?
In that capsule, it's nothing but pure darkness.
It probably is in space too, unless you can potentially see the moon. But if you get I'm with
terrible.
Carly. She said, "Give me the sub
terrible.
any day." It all sounds terrible, but if I have to pick, I'm picking sub. I'm at least close to Earth. There's a chance you can get me.
I guess.
Don't know.
Yeah, I guess if you want to go on chances of somebody getting you, you'd have a better chance on there. But yeah, now the thing that's been pissing me off about this case so much is that everybody's just like, "Where's the regulation? Where's the regulation?" I'm like, shut up about regulation. If rich elite billionaires want to risk their lives to get on a sub that's controlled by a Nintendo controller, let them. There's no government that needs to regulate that. If that's what you want to do with your billions of dollars and you're too stupid to, check on your own that thing is going to be safe, fuck them. And what government would regulate it? It's international waters. The fact that everybody's like so hyper focused on regulating shit like this, like nobody has any business regulating any of this. Like, let rich people do rich people shit, and if they want to die doing it, it's just like, you should be able to. I hate regulations. Like, if people want to jump off of buildings with parachutes, as long as there's no chance of them hurting somebody else below them, fucking
I'm with you in that. I'm with you
let's do it. You want to jump out?
It's still horrifying though.
I mean, it's horrifying, sure, but I don't think we need to regulate, who goes down in a submarine and what kind of submarine they go down in. People want to. These are billionaires. They're not idiots. They're way smarter than any of these other governments. That's why they have billions of dollars. The one dude was literally a billionaire.
Oh yeah.
You don't get there by being an ignoramus. I mean, maybe
old money, maybe.
I guess you could inherit some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, going on to the missing and unsolved case of the Millbrook twins. It's raining. It's dreary. The sun's going down. Go ahead and scare the shit out of me and give me anxiety problems. I'm ready for it.
All right, let's do it. So we're taking it back, guys, to the spring of 90. So March 18th of 1990 in Augusta, Georgia. We are going to be talking about 15-year-old twins, Jeannette and Dannette Millbrook. Jeannette and Dannette. They were born April 2nd of 1974. They today would be 49 years old. So Augusta, Georgia, if you're not familiar, now and particularly at that time, there is kind of all ranges of wealth and, living arrangements and these kinds of things. Augusta, you can argue, is mostly known for its yearly hosting of the Masters golf tournament. So a very prestigious event that takes place there. Tons and tons and tons of tourism. In fact, even personally, like when I sometimes travel back home to Tennessee, Augusta is a good halfway point. So sometimes with the kids, I might want to stay like in an Airbnb halfway. So if it's around Easter and we're making that trip, I've looked into doing that, and it's out of the question every time because everything is quadruple the price because the Masters are in town. So this brings a lot of tourism, which we will touch on why that might be important later. Like I said, just a huge influx of money and people. In fact, Warren Buffett is a member of this organization. So you're talking big names, big money, former presidents are there all the time. This is the kind of, idea, if you can picture that.
Oh, so a
There's
bunch of rich
also-
elites are hanging around. Well,
Yeah, right. Good luck. So then you also have, pockets of low income housing. You have a little bit of everything there. But there's some whispers that maybe some undesirable activity could be a bit swept under the rug, with the idea that it could put a damper on this tourism idea, right? If
Yeah.
people are coming in
Yeah.
and they actually kind of know some of these things, they may not want to come spend their money there. So that's something to keep swirling in the back of your head as we talk about it. So on this day in March, late March of 1990, it was between 66 and 70 degrees. I get different accounts on that. It was a nice spring day.
what's the difference in 66 and 70 degrees? Like, who gives a shit?
I'm particular. So I'm being specific. As specific as I can.
66, it would have been a Chinese man that did it. If it was 70 degrees, definitely going to be a white person.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I
But
just
yeah,
mean,
I got you. Attention to detail. You're like a real.
it is. I will
forensic
say,
detective.
I've said this before, and we're going to do a show on this. We talked about it. How true is true crime? I would rather not give information if I think it's, I'd rather give less information than the wrong
Right.
information.
Right.
So it was just a beautiful spring day regardless. You got to think the days are getting longer in the spring. I don't know. There's always like a little buzz in the air, at least for me, like March, April, you're anticipating summer and things are getting kind of nice. The town was bustling. Like I said, the Masters are approaching. So Masters are in April every year. So this is March.
Okay.
So on Sunday,
So it's kind of like March Madness time frame too, and Georgia's pretty big for basketball.
true.
I don't know
True.
is there colleges around Augusta?
Oh yeah. I
Augusta?
mean, you've got, yeah.
Yeah.
But you've got,
I can't remember where Georgia Tech was. Was Georgia Tech near Augusta?
so, I'm not sure. I'm sure someone will chime in.
Because that's a big basketball. That's big March Madness.
Mm-hmm. So this family, the Millbrook family, is not particularly invested in the Masters here, but I mention it just to know that that's kind of what's going on in the town during this time. Okay, so it's a Sunday. Dannette and Jeannette go with their mother. They have a younger sister, and they have multiple siblings actually, and they go to church at Christ Presbyterian Church. They go that morning like they always do. They're regulars there. And they're about to leave, and money was a little bit tight, all right, for mom. So, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm trying to grab my little notes here. So, Shantae is the sister that is tuning in. And Shantae, if you look into this case more or read further or listen to other podcasts, she has been an advocate for her sisters and for this case for all of these years, these 33 years since they've gone missing. So Shantae would have been 12 at this time. So the family goes to church, like I said, as usual. While they're there, they're leaving. And the pastor gave mom's name is Louise. Pastor gives mom a few dollars to kind of help out with lunch for the kids for the day. So they come home. You've got Dannette, who was known as kind of the more, not so to speak, outspoken, but she would kind of take up for Jeannette if needed. So Jeannette was a bit quieter. She had a kitten named Jennifer that she adored and nurtured and was just kind of really soft-spoken, sweet nurturer girl. And Dannette kind of took on the role of, like, I'll handle you if you talk to my sister ugly or whatever.
Right,
so she was a little bit more of that. So when they come home, you come home after church, you change your clothes, get a little comfy, which is what they do. Dannette changes out of her church clothes into a white Mickey Mouse t-shirt, white jeans, and black shoes. And Jeannette didn't really fully change. She just changed into comfy shoes. So at this point, she's wearing a cream-colored turtleneck, a navy pullover, and a khaki skirt with her little white tights, just like she had worn to church. She just now instead changed into tennis shoes. So mom gives them the money that they had gotten from church and asked them to go get some food. So they got some Church's chicken, which was down the street. It was easy to get to by foot. So the girls walk down the street, get some nice meal for after church, and come on back home. So while they're home, they're sitting with their siblings and their mom, and they're talking about, what the week looks like. Well, they've recently moved to a new area of town, not far, 2 or 3 miles from where they had previously lived, but this puts their school in a different zone. So now they're going to be responsible for bus fare, just like city bus fare to get to school. So as they're sitting around eating their after Sunday lunch and talking, they decide to, kind of make a plan for the week. And what does it look like now that we're living here? So mom realizes that the girls are going to need bus fare. Again, money is tight, but she called up the girls' godfather. His name was Theodore. He went by Ted. And so Theodore says, yeah, I'll give him some money. That's fine. Just send him over here. So they do. So around 2:30, the girls set off on foot to Ted's house. Dad, if you want to put a picture up of just the girls side by side, I think we have a picture of Jeannette and Dannette somewhere there if you're watching. So that's, if you're looking at the screen, guys, or if you look at Instagram later, that's Dannette on the left and Jeannette on the right. Just happy 15-year-old girls, shortcut hair. They're fraternal twins, so they're not identical. But that's a picture of the girls there. So they set off and they go they go to Ted's house to obtain this money. So Ted gives them about $20 and then a little bit extra per child for some spending money. He told them, he'd give them like any good godfather would do, right? Like, here's you some treat money for on your way home, get you a little snack or whatever. So they do. When they leave Ted's house, they then go to their cousin Juanita's house. They stop in. She's also a teenager. They ask her if she would go. They ask Juanita's mother if Juanita would walk them home. Now, her mother thought that this was an interesting request because the girls had made this trip on foot before. They've never requested a ride. In fact, the mom will say later, Miss Louise will say that she knew that there were, some undesirable things in the neighborhood, but she always felt okay because the girls were always together, safety in numbers, and wasn't too worried about it. It's important to note that when the girls left their home that day to go to Ted's for the money, their little sister asked if she could, Shantae asked if she could go with them. Again, she's 12, they're 15, they kind of make a joke, basically like, it's our business, or you don't need to come with us. And then they kind of laugh and they say, no, we'll be right back, stay home. So she stays home. And this is something that she has thought about, obviously, as you can imagine, for the next 33 years, because could things have been different for her? Could she have also gone missing, or would they have maybe still been there with them if there had been a third? There's no way to know. These are things that we know that our brain does. There's no point in harping on it because it doesn't change anything, but also we do these kinds of things. So either way, they leave Ted's and they go to Juanita's, like I said. Now, Juanita's mom, their aunt, is not happy with Juanita walking them home. She's concerned that it's going to be getting a little too close to dark by the time Juanita walks them home for her to be walking back alone. So she says no. So then the girls go, they have an older sister that was out of the house. Older sister's name is Asiander. So Asiander has actually recently had a baby. So it kind of surprised her that they came to her house to request that she walk home with them. And she didn't understand why they would be asking, kind of same as Juanita's mom. This was not a normal request of theirs. But she says no because, like I said, she has just recently given birth. So she tells them, just be safe, go on home, whatever.
Right.
So then they go to the pump and shop. That's a gas station, little corner market down the street, right there in their old neighborhood. And so they've gone to their godfather's house, their cousin's house, and their older sister's house. So now they're going to this gas station. Remember, Ted gave them some spending money, so they spend it. They know the clerk there. They're familiar with her. She knows their family. Again, this was the neighborhood they used to live in. They were there often. So she recognizes the girls. So she's able to tell authorities later. We're keeping a pretty decent timeline by way of them traveling on foot. Her name is Agnes, if I'm getting that right. I believe it's Miss Agnes. And she said that they came in, that they were acting fine and normal. Nothing seemed offbeat with them whatsoever. They got some chips a drink, and some candy each. She said there had been a car parked outside at some point, but I mean, nothing to cause alarm, and it could have just been another customer or loiter or whatever. It was nothing that raised any suspicion. I mean, to this day, it was just never confirmed to be anything. But either way, she checks them out, and then she has to go in the back for something. She comes back and they're gone. She thinks nothing of it. So she does not know. She cannot confirm at that point whether they left on foot or by car. Again, this is 1990. We don't have surveillance or closed circuit TV on gas stations like we do now, in corner shops like that. So there's nothing to go off of at that point. This was the last time the girls were seen. Damn. So when they leave that gas station, they've never been seen again.
So they left that gas station in a vehicle.
We don't know.
You wonder, because you think, man, with all the, I guess it would just be a nightmare for a detective because so many cars are in and out, and
it's a busy day. It's a Sunday afternoon, like a spring Sunday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a rural area. I mean, they're in town,
right?
So they are not seen from again. Now listen to this. So when they left, remember they went to church and came home, and then they went to pick up some food and come home. So they left home 3 times that day to go to church with their family, then together to get this food for lunch for the family that came home, and then together again to get the bus fare money,
right?
And never seen after. What happened between the second and the third time is interesting, because when they came home with their food after church, they told their mom that a black male in a white van had followed them, and it made them feel uneasy. She looked out, she saw nothing, and they kind of, I think that they kind of everybody kind of forgot about it, maybe wrote it off that he wasn't really following them, maybe just, whatever. But that's a very important thing.
It's always
to
a
note.
van too, man. It's always a fucking dudes driving vans should just be a red flag.
Yeah. Well, I think, I agree.
But you know what? Kids have that sixth sense. I remember as a kid.
They do.
You know what I mean? I remember as a kid, it never happened to me, but I felt like maybe every school year there was a kid, that would run into the classroom and be like, there was a car and it was following me and it did this, or you know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah,
my mom.
That was also during the height of Unsolved Mysteries. So
yeah, everybody was kind of hyper focused.
Yeah, maybe.
Aware. But you know what? I don't know, because as a cop, I have dealt with several people driving around in cars masturbating. That is a thing that people like to do. They like to sit in parking lots and look at girls leave grocery stores. They like to sit at parks in their cars and do it. And I've worked several cases like that. Mm-hmm. So, I think that, when a parent or a child or anybody, because it's happened to my mom. My mom was going for a walk, and a guy in a vehicle, I don't know if it was a van, but pulled up next to her, and then she was like, what is that guy doing? And she started walking up to him, and then he showed his penis to her and then drove off, and I was always like, what's the problem? You got to see a free dick, who cares? But now that I'm older, I understand the problem with all that. But these girls probably were onto something, and that's probably your biggest clue.
Right.
Sure,
so we'll talk about how that might come into play as we move forward with the case. But it's something definitely to remember. So,
do you believe that people have spider senses? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
the hairs on your neck stand up.
We talk about it all the time, because we also have conditioned ourselves a lot of the time to ignore it. You don't want to feel dumb. You don't want to feel like you're overreacting. Right. You don't want to profile someone. You don't want whatever could be the thing. And you just think, no. It's, it's not, I'm sure it was fine. I'm sure it was fine. But it happened to me in an apartment gym back in Fayetteville days. And I was fine, but not without some, a dude was being pretty aggressive. And I knew the minute he walked in that gym, and it was at nighttime and I was alone, and a teeny tiny apartment gym, there's only a couple pieces of equipment, a treadmill, there's not much. And I was running, and there was a mirror, along the wall that you face when you're working out. And so as I'm running, the TV's up in the corner playing something that I can't really see. And then I can see the mirror, and a gentleman walks in, big guy, like 6'3", 6'4", probably 350 pound, huge dude. Ducks to get in the doorway kind of a situation. He comes in and immediately, without word to me, and that's, I think that's always suspicious when someone doesn't make eye contact or smile or nod or wave or speak. It's odd. And he comes in, immediately just sits down on a weight bench, but he's not wearing gym clothes. He's wearing like jeans and, whatever, like a sweatshirt or something, and grabs the remote for the TV and immediately changes it. But he changes it to like a sport, like to something in sports. Okay. So I think, okay, the dude doesn't have cable. He's coming to use this to watch the game. Like, so I don't think too much about it. But as I'm running, I talk about the Spidey sense. I don't feel comfortable. I can just, something felt odd. I kind of started going through it in my head. Like, now keep in mind, I was younger. I was in my early 20s. So I didn't want to feel dumb or feel like I was overreacting or, something like that. And as I'm like seeing myself in the mirror in front of me as I jog on the treadmill, I can see him sitting on that bench looking in the mirror at me. But he'll never look at me. He never turns his head to look. He doesn't speak. Anyway, this goes on for a while. I finally start slowing the treadmill down because I thought I'm done. It was probably 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. I was like, I was alone at that apartment. I was like, I'm going to, I'll just leave my clothes in the dryer. I'm going to go back, to my house. And as I'm slowing the treadmill down and starting to like stop it, he stood up and walked over and stood in front of the door and faced me. Oh. And, my heart sank. You know what I mean? I thought, oh, this is it. This is what I was afraid of. And now I'm angry with myself that I didn't just go sooner or whatever. And, it all wound up being okay. He definitely...
I think it's a dangerous place to try to rape a chick in a gym because there's a lot of weights that can be thrown around at you.
This dude would have snapped me in half. This guy was dragging me into. I couldn't have even gotten to a weight. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. Ultimately, what happened is he stood in front of the door, and we kind of do one of these. And I know I was just scared and young, and I was just like, I'm trying to leave or whatever I said, very unself-assuredly. And he grabbed me, and I'm sure my face lit up with panic. And then he laughed, and he stepped aside. And opened the door and left. And do you know what I look at now? Do you know what I think now?
What?
I think I would like to know what his criminal history looks like now, because we always talk about it. People like, you know what I mean? Like there's voyeurs, there's people who like to look and look, and then they might like test the waters and approach people. They dabble, like that was safe. And then
dude, you could have been touched. You could have been touched by a serial rapist.
Well, it terrified me. And the second he did that, and then I was just so angry, right? But whatever, it doesn't matter. But to answer your question, always, and listeners, always, we talk about this. If you know what, if you're wrong, worst case scenario, you're wrong.
The profile, like, I don't know, we talk about it all the time in the police department, but like criminals, generally speaking, want three things. They want it to be quick, they want it to be very simple, and they want it to be very quiet. So if you can take away quick, simple, or quiet away from them, they'll usually leave. And we call it getting off of the X. So for an example, if you're at the ATM and there's somebody hovering around and you got those spider senses, if you quiet, right? Let's take away quiet. Oh, damn it. Are you fucking serious? How is there no money in my account? Right? Like now you're kind of like, it's not easy. It's not quiet. You're upset. Now you're like flailing your arms like at the machine. They're probably going to walk away because they're going to probably be like, that's a sign. I'm out, because it's not quick. It's not going to be quiet. And it looks like you don't have any money.
You may not be in a position or you may not be in a place where that would matter. Like I could have yelled and it wouldn't have mattered. The office is shut down for the night. You know what I mean? So my point is, to answer your question, yes, I think that we do have these instincts, it's what helps keep us alive. And you need to, men and women, particularly women, heed those. And if you feel that way, then leave. So what? You left somewhere early. You're safe.
It's probably your fault. You probably should have been dressed the way you were. It's probably your fault. Just kidding. I had to.
I knew you did. I know you did.
I had to do it.
I know you did. So, okay, let's get back to Jeannette and Dannette, y'all.
Wear your burqa to the gym next time.
I'll do it. So we know that they were last seen at that gas station, and Agnes, the lady who worked there, confirmed it. So by evening time, Mom is getting, she's getting concerned. I mean, the girls really don't do much. They don't go out. They're 15. They don't go out a lot. They're home. Like I said, what they did today is about the extent of how much they leave the house. Maybe go to see their old friends or a family member and come right on back home.
Well, the 90s was different because you didn't have cell phones. So you couldn't really venture. We had more freedom because we didn't have cell phone, but at the same time, you didn't. You didn't wander as far away. You didn't like get in the car with people. You didn't go to people's houses because you didn't have a way of getting into, you had to be able to call Mom and get permission first.
Right. And there weren't even soon after, pagers were kind of coming into the mix a little bit for high school age kids or maybe middle school age kids. But, even then, this wasn't really much of a thing. So this was 1990, on the dot. So
private school kids.
Oh, well, it didn't matter. We didn't have a phone to go with it anyway. You still had to have coins to call. Once you got that page, you had to find a payphone. Either way, so now it's nighttime. Mom's getting concerned, as you can imagine, and so she calls the last place she knows for the girls to have been, and that would be their godfather Ted's house. So she calls him, and he said, "No, they did stop by. Yeah, they were here. They left a while ago. Remember, they left home between 2 and 2:30." To set out to Ted's. The last time they were seen at that gas station was around 4:30, which actually makes perfect sense if they walked from home to Ted's, to cousins, to sisters, to gas station. That's been 2 hours and it's a couple of miles, 2 to 3 miles. So that is right on par. So it sounds like nothing really went sideways between any of those events until after the gas station. So he said, I gave them some bus fare. I gave them some extra money to get themselves a treat on the way home, whatever. They keep making phone calls. That's when they find out that they've, that she did go. In fact, the girls did go, in fact, to the cousins and to the sisters. And then eventually all the rest of these details come out over time. So Mom calls local sheriff's department that evening. They tell her that, you have to wait 24 hours for a missing persons report.
Sure.
She's very, very concerned. So of course she. But
see, now listen. We got to cover this.
I know. We cover
I get asked this. I get asked this all the time. Why do cops in all these true cases never file a police report? Does not do anything for you. It does not help with this search. So if you come, and my wife made me explain this in gory detail. If you call me and if you call 911 and say hey, I got 2 15-year-old daughters and they're missing, most cops, generally speaking, cops aren't going to they don't want to just lose somebody, right? They have hearts, they have souls. So 15's a little different. You might not go as hard in the paint for a 15-year-old, but definitely when you've got younger kids, you're going to go look for them. But a report is something that you might do a day or two later, but it doesn't mean everybody's not looking for the kid. They're putting, they might even put a helicopter up, and what you're doing is you're taking notes in your notepad and a timeline. The only thing a report does is kind of keep your timeline a little bit neater because it's it's just done quicker. But I would rather you not be sitting typing a report somewhere. And I'd rather you be on the ground looking for my kid. And usually the cop that's in charge of the missing person, it's on his shoulders. And at the end of the day, it's going to be,
is it? Because that's what I think you're going to find.
I said generally speaking. I
agree. But this is a case where I'm always, and I think we all do this on Failure to Stop. We sit back and listen and then make, kind of an assessment on how we think things went. And, there are times when we hear, oh, it's a conspiracy, or oh, the cops did this or didn't do this right. And you can try to sit back and see if that's accurate or not.
The boys on the tracks. I mean, those were corrupt, foul cops. Dennis Perkins, foul, corrupt cop,
Right. And so, a lot of times people are frustrated with results or lack of results. And so it's easy to say maybe that the cops aren't doing their job.
But
I will tell you.
The report thing, it doesn't matter if the cop is corrupt or not.
No,
most cops looking for people are not doing a report within 24 hours because you just don't. I mean, it's dumb to do it because 99. Listen, missing persons reports come across your day in Raleigh. As a cop, you were going to take a missing persons report every single day. Every single day, you're going to get a call that somebody's missing. Every single day that you work, somebody is going to go missing. And every single time for 6 years, you find them and there's nothing nefarious that happens.
Sure.
Every single time. So imagine that every day that you went to your job, you had the same thing. And for years and years, it's never been the thing. So, but I love it. All these podcasts are like, and they don't do the report for 24 hours.
Well, so that's not even the egregious point. That wasn't the problem.
Sure.
So mom is okay with that. She sits back and waits. As soon as 24 hours have expired, she immediately calls again on the dot, right? And they do. Someone comes out to the house to address the situation. So I don't think, I mean, I'm sure as a parent, you wish you could make a report because it feels like something is happening. But to your point, I understand that. But someone comes out. James Shipp. This guy, I will tell you what, I don't look at this one. You guys listen to the case, read as much as you want. I will give you The Fall Line is a podcast that covered this heavily, took it upon themselves to go to Augusta. They've spoken with the family. They've really researched this at length. I listened to all of their show upon reading multiple other sources. I will tell you, I'm not quick to just say that people didn't do the right thing in terms of the authorities.
Sure.
But if I feel like there was incompetence, I mean, like whatever, we'll see. But that is my determination after this one. And come to your own conclusion here.
Yeah, let's see.
But
and it probably is. After the boys on the tracks.
Yeah, this one doesn't seem like corruption to me. Like that was definitely corruption, collusion, just dirty stuff. This one just seems like apathy. Okay, we'll talk about what it seems like. So the guy comes out to take the report. He right off the rip, the girl's last name is Millbrook. He put an S on the end. It stayed in the report that way. He got their birth date wrong. It's twins. They each have obviously the same birth date. He gets it wrong. There were multiple other discrepancies within the report. So time goes on, a day, 2 days, a week. Nothing's coming of it. Immediately, even upon coming to the house the first day, he kind of shirks it and says, "Oh, I think that they probably just ran away." Okay.
Right, because 15-year-olds.
Even if you think that, we still work the case, right? You still work it because you find them or you don't. You don't just assume. You can't just say, "Well, they ran away," and I think that they probably did. Now, I will tell you that there are whispers of the fact that this guy had been there for quite a while. These were two young Black females in a certain area of town that it does seem to be that it was dismissed. Things seem dismissed quickly. I'm not saying that that's what happens all the time. I don't think that happens all the time. I do think that this can happen, particularly back then. And I think it sounds like his verbiage was along the lines of, "I see this all the time. They probably just ran away."
Yeah, right.
And so without actually looking at each case individually to say, well, maybe this one is different, right? So anyway, he really doesn't work the case. Like this doesn't go any further. And then next thing you know, the girls on what would be their 17th birthday, so just a couple years later, he actually calls the family or comes to the family, and the mom is, got her heart in her throat because she thinks that he's going to tell her that they've found the girls or found their remains. And in fact, he's coming to tell her that they've closed the case because now the girls would be 17, which means that even if they were to find them, they don't have to come back home at that age in Georgia at that time. Even though they didn't go missing at 17. Like we still have on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, we still have people who would be 40 years old that went missing when they were 13. You still keep, you don't as an agency just close a case at 17 because they're of this age that now it's like this magic number that now they don't have to come home. Right? Yeah. So the frustration sets in.
But who would give him the authority to do that? I guess, was this guy a detective?
It's a good question. And this, but how it's different in every jurisdiction, like whether that like detective is like a lateral or vertical promotion or whatever.
Big. Augusta's a big town. Like I'm sure they don't have like a small police.
I would think they would have specialized units. I would think that they would have particular departments, right?
Not for missing people.
Not for missing people, but they would have it, it's not like some of the rural towns we talk about.
I'm just saying, was this guy a detective or was he a street cop that called them?
I have heard investigator, I have heard detective, I have heard cop. It's kind of depending on the source that you read. Because when people say investigator, that's always a very generic term for his role.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the 90s are different. So I mean, I
and 1990, like the first year of.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I wonder
Sorry,
if he had some yeah. Okay, I'm gonna keep listening. Very interesting.
Yeah. So he says the case is closed. So whatever. So of course, as you can imagine, they're frustrated. So at this point, anything that's going on that would further the case or be looked into is being done by the family. Now these things can get expensive. They don't have the money to hire a PI. They don't have the money to, whatever, look into this any more than they can. They've made handmade flyers. They've done what they can. So they keep going on and going on. Shantae, again, the sister, is really, she was a kid. She was 12.
Sure.
Now 14, 15, 16 as this is going on. And so they're doing everything that they can. At some point, they get a notification that NCMEC, or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, has dropped the case. And they say, I'm sorry, what do you mean you took them out of your files? And they say, when the family contacts that organization, they said because they were told that the girls were found. So the family was like, no, the girls were not found. What do you mean? So then they call that guy, James Shipp, right? They call the authorities and they're like, what do you mean they were found? And so he never tells them the girls were found, but at every turn he's telling NCMEC that the girls were found. And so he tells them not to worry about it, whatever. They call NCMEC again. They say, hey, please call the authorities back, because they don't have the power. The family doesn't have the power to change what NCMEC does. So they say, call the authorities back and, clarify this. The girls have not been found. So they do. And it happens again. They keep it down for a while because they say that the girls have been found. So this is just one of many bizarre, whispers of almost rumors, but they're not just rumors. They're actually acting upon these things, right? As though it's fact. So there even comes another time where they get word, Shantae and her family gets word that the girls had been taken, that DFACS had been consulted and that they came to get the girls. And so they call authorities. They're like, what are you talking about? DFACS didn't come get my girls. First of all, Dannette specifically was on seizure medication that she had to take daily for a seizure disorder. No one came to get her medication. There were other children in the home. They wouldn't have just taken these two girls out and not the other children. It's such a bizarre allegation that DFACS came. It does feel like at every turn, they're just trying to make it go away almost. I hate to say that it sounds bothersome to him, but it just seems bothersome to him. Another time, that same guy, Shipp, alluded to the fact he had heard a rumor and went with it. He heard a rumor from one of the kids at school. Good Lord. You know what kids at school say. I'm not going to go off a bunch of teenagers,
No, especially not in school.
No. And if they had a beef with some girl, she's going to say what she, who knows? And so, one of the things was that one of the girls said something like, oh, I think one of the girls was pregnant, and they left. Well, here's the deal though. Okay. Let's think about that. If one of the girls was pregnant, first of all, the sister that they went to see, their oldest sister, she was a teen mom, and their mother loved and still supported her as best she could. She didn't alienate her or anything like that. There were multiple siblings. The mom was not one, even as scary as it would be to tell your mother that at 15, they had experienced this with their sister. So it wasn't like that was a big fear. And also, so they're both just going to go. And after 33 years, no one's going to come back home or tell mom about it. Also, they were requesting aid to get home. They were requesting a guardian, if you will, someone to walk with them at 2 different turns to walk with them home. And they've confirmed this. Their family has confirmed this. So we have less to go off of in the terms that they ran away, and much more to go off of with they were trying to get home. I mean, they asked their sister, they asked their cousin to walk with them home. if they're trying to run away, why would they go to 2 different stops to ask for help coming home? Right? That doesn't make sense
strange.
to me. So anyway, I don't think that they ran away. There's not an ounce of my being that feels like these girls run away.
No, and you'd know by now.
You'd know by now. Like that, yeah, exactly. So let's talk on some ideas here. Someone we haven't talked about much is their biological father. His name is John. We haven't talked about him because he really didn't play a part in their lives so much. They would see him occasionally. Kind of the terms would be like they'd see him out and about. He still lived around town where they did. He didn't really have anything to do with them. He didn't pay child support. He, kind of abandoned the family in a sense, right? But his parents, at least his mother, if not both of his parents, lived with or near him. So the girls would come to see. They were very close still with the paternal grandparents. So they would see them, and by way of doing so, they would see their biological father. Now, he was known to have had a history of domestic abuse. I think he was abusive to their mother, all sorts of things as to why he wasn't in the home with them. But they would run across his path. So years after the girls went missing, John actually pled guilty to concealing a murder. Not theirs. This is something completely unrelated to the girls. But you need to know that he does have a criminal past that goes beyond domestic violence.
Concealing a murder?
Mm-hmm.
So but he didn't murder the person.
No, he helped conceal. So there was a guy named Ernest Vaughn. Ernest is still in prison. He was convicted of a murder, again, unrelated to the twins' disappearance. And Ernest Vaughn agreed to talk from prison. So at one point, finally, he was like, yeah, I'll talk to you guys. When people were getting in touch with him, he's like, I'll talk to you. But essentially, I think he had just filed for his whatever appeal that had gotten denied. He was like, I'll talk, but is there any way, if I give you real information that can help you out, essentially, can you scratch my back too?
Sure.
And they're like, yeah, we'll try. So they immediately took that letter to authorities to say, hey, this is what this guy's saying. And they're like, well, talk to him. So they do. And he said that he was actually at John's house, their biological father, the day that the girls went missing. He was there because he was often in and out of there. Their dad had a lot of drug activity in and out of his house. And this Ernest guy was only 12 years old at the time. And he was selling drugs out of John's house at 12. So he remembers being there. And he remembers some, unsavory characters, if you will. This kid, we've talked about this, it stinks. He kind of came up in this. And at 12, this is already what he's doing. I feel like it's no wonder that he's in prison.
I've got a video on my phone of an 8-year-old whistling out cops to his drug addict mother wearing brand new Jordans, brand new white wash pants, brand new white Michael Jordan shirt, and a white flat brim Michael Jordan hat at 8 years old, standing on the corner of Section 8 housing, whistling out every time a cop goes by. I actually worked a case for child abuse by using the child, by having cops drive by just so I could get a number of times of him making that noise only when cops go up. But imagine being at 8 years old and you're already taught to be crowing out police. Yeah. So and listen, when you're talking about a 12-year-old kid in the hood, that's more like a 16 or 17-year-old kid in a
but it's sad, right? It's sad to think about is what I'm saying.
Terrible.
It's sad that it's I'm saying it's sad, but I mean I'm not super surprised that he eventually wound up in prison, right?
Sure.
So he was 12 years old. He said he was selling drugs there. He said that he was at John's house that day, the last day the girls were seen, and that the girls had stopped by and that they were there, I guess potentially to see the grandparents. I'm not super sure, but they had been there before. He said that the girls stopped by, and at some point, one of the men there either did sexually assault or attempted to sexually assault one of the girls. Okay. The other sister confronts the man, finds this out or hears her struggling or whatever, confronts the guy. He hauls off. Now, this is Ernest Vaughn's recollection. This is what he's saying happened.
At 12.
So
at 12 years old.
From 12 years old. He's now in
Sure.
prison as an adult. I don't think
Right.
you'd forget this, but this is what he's saying
No.
happened.
And like I said, a 12-year-old is like a 16-year-old. You know what I
Right.
mean? They're just
And, you know,
way
here's the
more
deal.
mature.
You can choose to, none of this is on record. I mean, it's on record that he said it, but none of this is proven true.
Sure,
This is what he says. You can choose to believe it or not. And I'll
Right,
let
right,
you know what the authorities
Right.
said later. But he says that once the sister confronts the guy for this attempted or full-on sexual assault of the sister, he hauls off, punches this sister in the face. She falls backward, and the back of her head hits a coffee table and it splits open. Now other sisters start screaming. And he said there's just kind of chaos that ensues, as you can imagine. And then John, it's like either John, the biological father, or one of the other men there yells and tells him, Ernest, and a few other people there basically to get out and leave until it's quiet. This is what he said happened. He said they said leave until it's quiet. And he is under the very strong opinion that the girls were killed and dumped in an area called the Brickyard Pond area. So when you look at the Brickyard Pond area there outside of Augusta, evidently, you know, we've talked about the Lincoln Park area in Chicago when we talked about Adnan Syed and all that.
Right.
And then once we learned more about Lincoln Park, you realize that like it's a really kind of known dumping ground for bodies, for murders. So it sounds like the Brickyard Pond area is exactly the same. Come to find out when you talk to authorities or read accounts of it, this was a pretty common place to dispose of criminal activity, aka a corpse. So they have never searched that area. And let me tell you why. They say that, okay, first of all, let me tell you this. Jim Shipp that we talked about that was originally the lead on the case, that at every turn dismissed. Oh, they're probably pregnant and ran off. Oh, I think they're runaways. Oh, now they're 17. We're not going to look into it further, right? At every turn, he never gave them a bone. He never interviewed John, the biological father, although they were known to talk to him and he lived right there in the area.
Yeah,
that
I'm
they went
sure. It sounds like this John character, if they're selling drugs at 12 years old, the cops all know these people. You know what I
they
mean?
know
Like,
him.
this is something that they probably, you know, and not to say that it's right or wrong, but could be personal, right? Could be like, man, fuck you. What'd you think was going to happen? Like, you know what I mean? You're a piece of shit and you hang out with pieces of shit. And then you would allow your fucking twin daughters to come in here and be anywhere near this shit. I mean,
No, but
who
no,
knows
they
what
didn't even interview him, is what I'm saying. He was never questioned.
Right, but I'm saying that's probably their mentality is probably like,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
you've got
it's
the other
bad,
side of
it's
the
bad, it's
family
not
that's
right,
looking
it's
for
not
the
right.
kids. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
it's not right. It's not.
Well,
it's
he
not
also
a,
refused to
not
give
right,
any
but-
DNA. He refused to give any
Sounds
DNA,
like
and
that's
they.
probably a pretty good story. I mean,
So let me
it's
tell you
hard to
why.
believe
Let me
anything.
tell you
It's
why
hard to
they didn't
believe
authenticate
anything,
this, or why they say they don't believe it. Okay, so listen. So James Shipp, the guy who, like I said, was dismissing everything at every turn.
Yeah.
Eventually, he goes off. He closed the case. I will
Right.
tell you, current day, it has
Yeah.
been reopened. Nick Meck
Okay.
has them on file, and it is considered cold, but it is
Right.
being worked, we think or hope. But in 2013, at the urging of family, there was a new sheriff in town,
Yeah.
Sheriff Roundtree, and he seemed kind and compassionate. And the family thought maybe these are the fresh eyes that we need. Maybe this will be, this new. Well, let's try again. So in 2013, Roundtree took over. Well, so Roundtree was around when this came to light about Ernest Vaughn's testimony, if you will, what his recant is of that night. Well, at one point in Ernest's story, when he's talking about the girls being there and the fight that ensued and the assault, he mentioned someone that was there when they said, who else was there? And he mentioned this guy that was in a wheelchair. Okay. So there was a guy that was there in a wheelchair. Well, the truth of the matter is this guy did become in a wheel. He was in an officer involved shooting about 2 years after this event, after the girls went missing, and was paraplegic, and was in a wheelchair from that shooting just 2 years later. So keep in mind, if this guy is now, it's been 30 years or whatever. And so for the last 20 something years, whatever, however, over 2 decades, he's known of this guy to be in a wheelchair. when he thinks about that event, if he's saying he was in a
Sure,
wheelchair,
sure.
like that's negligible to
Right.
me.
Yeah,
I don't feel like that's enough
fair.
to throw out everything that he said.
Right.
And so, but because
Especially
of
at
that,
12, right? Because he's 12.
well, and that's what I'm saying. Then at 14, this guy lands himself in a wheelchair, and for the rest of this guy's life, that guy was in a wheelchair. That's the only way he knows him.
Right.
Okay, right. So, but because of that one detail, because he said that there was a guy in a wheelchair there, and they said, but he wasn't. And he's like, oh, right, my bad. Like he is now, but like he wasn't then. They're like, boop, we're not going to search Brickyard Pond area. We don't believe anything you said. Then another time they said,
and they still have they still not searched Brickyard Pond area?
No, and it gets weirder because now they say, well, actually, we kind of corroborate what he says. Like, we think that what he said is probably true. We just don't think it's the girls. What other two girls
So then still,
were just killed?
Still go fucking drain the. Well, I mean, I don't know how big the Brickyard Pond is. It might not be a pond. It might be more of a fucking.
No,
lake,
I think it's a brick. I think it's literally a brickyard. But okay, so then there's two other girls that were potentially killed. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like,
at
why
every
wouldn't
turn,
you,
it's not making sense.
Why wouldn't you go and at least try to
So
try
then
to search the bodies?
Let's take it down.
Crazy.
I hate to say it this way, but almost kind of a worse path. So if anybody is still thinking, if you're still in runaway camp, even after this stuff, okay, that's fine. I'll give it to you. Think what you want. Let's move forward. We're going to talk about a guy named James Patrick Washington. Okay.
Well, they definitely didn't run away.
Oh, I definitely
They wouldn't have left their 12-year-old sister. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think for a minute.
Not this many years afterwards.
For a whole lot of reasons, yes.
No, there's no way they ran away. So just take that off the table.
James Patrick Washington. Dad, can we get a picture of him up? It's a mugshot of a male.
Oh, damn.
So this is James Patrick Washington. This was taken in, I don't know, mid-90s, a little bit after the girls had gone missing. Okay, we can, that's going to be enough of that guy. So now that we've seen him, this dude lived and worked at a local brickyard there in Augusta. All right. He lived on a street called Hale Street, and he often had to traverse MLK Boulevard to get to work, and particularly at the point where that pumping shop was, that gas station where they were last seen, that would have been on his back and forth work travels. Okay. He was known to drive 3 different vehicles, all of which were cars, not a van. But it would be good to remember that even if he didn't own a van, he had access to multiple kinds of vehicles because he worked in transport at the brickyard. So trucks, vans, cars, you name it, he had access to and would use. Okay. So he was, at this point, we find out later, people didn't know this then, but he was actively attacking women in the early 90s, right there in that part of town in Augusta. In fact, authorities say that his earliest murder, you heard me right, murder was possibly in 1987. His victimology was very specific. Young Black women with short hair in their teens to early 30s. We know by the looks of the picture that Jeannette and Dannette both very specifically fit that description. This guy, James, stood only 5'4", but he was heinously vicious. This guy was, and this is all based on victim testimony, and they all corroborated exactly the same story. His MO was very specific. He would abduct the women. He would often subdue them first by pistol whipping, which he was not a big guy. He probably had to subdue these women. So he would pistol whip them, take them to a second location. Never go to a second location if it's within any of your power. Risk getting run over by the car tires before you go to a second location. He would take them to the second place, and there he would often shoot them in the abdomen and then rape them. He was known per the victims to pull his shirt up and hold his shirt in his teeth so that it wouldn't get bloodied by their bleeding abdomen while he was assaulting them. So keep this in mind. In 1995, the girls went missing in 1990. In 1995, he was sentenced to 17 consecutive life sentences for abductions taking place between the years of 1991 and 1993.
Oh.
He was found guilty of sexually assaulting 5 women, 3 of whom he shot but did survive. He was set to stand trial for the murder of 2 other women and was the prime suspect in a 3rd murder, but it got dropped because they couldn't quite find enough evidence. He never made it to trial, however. He died in prison in 1999 of AIDS.
No, good for him.
So let me tell you a little something, though. John that we spoke on, that biological father, he and James knew each other and had some shared criminal activity over the years.
Well, I mean, so listen, when you're talking about a community like this, I'm only coming off of the Holtzclaw case, but I think just so many people don't understand that these communities, we're not talking about, it's really hard for most of America to understand, but you're talking about no more than 7 blocks of an area. And a lot of these folks, like this John character, they've never left those 7 blocks their whole life. So everybody knows everybody. Yeah. All the cops know the key players. They keep going back to the same guys for the same things. These guys all know. So, my point being is he would have known these 2 girls since they were probably babies. You know what I mean? Being in that neighborhood.
Well, yeah, maybe. Now, the family, though, like the mom and the girls, and they had moved out, but the mom and these other kids they weren't associated with them at all. Like, I mean, I guess they were in the sense that they would go sometimes to see the grandparents, but they weren't into anything. Mom's going to work. They're going to church.
I'm saying that dad was probably friends with these guys for a long time, and they would have known that he had two twins. You know what I mean?
So keep this in mind. So then John is currently the father in a nursing home for dementia. They did go back to, I say they, meaning like other not authorities, to talk to him about this. His initial response was that they were dead and buried and gone. And then moving forward from that, you couldn't really get coherent speech. And then he couldn't seem to remember anything after he said that. I do think that first statement, if he truly has dementia, that first statement actually could mean a lot. And I say that because a lot of you know, but when you have dementia, a lot of times you remember things from long ago. You have a much harder time with short-term memory. So a lot of times people with dementia might remember the 50s and the 60s and, might think you were that boyfriend or girlfriend from back then or your husband or wife from back then and don't know the current, what's been going on in the last 10 years. So if he did say that, I don't know. I don't necessarily think it was wrong. He did tell their oldest daughter, though, back around the time this happened, Asiander, he told her that if the cops ever came to ask him any questions about the disappearance of the girls, to tell them he had died. So there is currently a $50,000 reward. That is until August of this year. It will then get dropped back down quite a bit back to the donors if there's no information or arrest made in the case by that point.
Where did you say did you know the pump shop? Where was that? Like, do you know what the name of that pump shop was? Or
it was called Pump and Shop, like just the gas station, like Corner Market. Yeah. But that was the last place they were seen. Mm-hmm.
Man, that is bonkers, man.
It's just pitiful. I mean,
the dad knows this John character. He knows who took his daughters. That's sickening.
I mean, I think that without any other information, and this is really the only information we have, unless Shantae reaches out and has something else to say, but this is pretty much everything I've gathered is what we've talked about tonight, kind of compactly. But I think I'm going with the Ernest guys, what he said. I really think that he's got nothing to lose. The dude's never leaving jail.
Well, there's definitely. So I was looking at the Google Maps just now of this brickyard, and I was pretty much right in my brain of how I.
Hale is another street, by the way. If you were just trying to
Hale Street.
Hale Street is right there.
But it's very block by block, grid square block, big inner city style things. And look, you and I have like not really, Wilmington doesn't really have. It's got a couple of blocks, but it's not like Augusta or somewhere like Chicago where it's laid out in a very specific way. This Brickyard Ponds lines up right next to this like old Savannah grid system type street. And that would be, just a vast marshy.
So that's it. So that's what I was going to say.
Very large area with
Augusta lies
dirt
between
roads.
The Piedmont and the coast.
Yeah, that
right.
would
So
be
the
like
Piedmont area, if you're not aware, is like a marshy, swampy river. It's got its own ecosystem
and miles.
Mm-hmm.
This Brickyard Ponds. For the listeners, you might be thinking like, well, how hard is it to search a pond? Because that's what I was thinking. I was like, why are we gonna fucking empty this? No. This is like it goes all the way to a dam. The New Savannah Bluff Lock and Dam. It's a pretty big, marshy, alligator infested, airboat, lots of
and let's say there was some partnership there. This is a hypothesis, but let's say this is stretching here, but if we're just kind of theorizing, let's say that who's to say, no one's confirmed nor denied that James, that serial rapist and killer, was at John's house that night when this happened to the girls. So who's to say when John was like, somebody take care of it, you guys leave and don't come back till it's quiet? Who's to say that James wasn't like, oh yeah, I work. That's where I work, at that place, right? At that Brickyard Pond. So obviously he's already got a history. Yeah, I know a guy. Like, I'm already doing this in my spare time. So, who's to say he didn't go on and handle it? He's dead. We can't talk to him. John's still alive, but he has dementia. It's that Ernest guy, though. I think right now he's the most solid lead we've got in what he said. But again, if you remember, the authorities dismissed what he said because he just made the one mistake of saying the guy was in a wheelchair, which the guy was in a wheelchair 2 years later. But
listen, the definitely cops are wrong for dismissing all that. But let's just say, even if they were like, okay, yeah, bro, I don't see that you're finding anybody in this pond area.
Yeah, but you don't just follow up on a lead.
Well, no, I get that. No, I get that. But I'm saying, like let's just say you did follow up on the lead like you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Where would you start, man? I'm looking at this place, man. It's way bigger than I thought. I'm looking at so many dirt roads because I get interested in these true crime things. Like I'm already thinking like, oh, let's go out there. Like let's go plan a trip. And have you looked at the Google image of this place yet?
Yeah, I have.
Oh my God! You're talking pond, dirt road. It looks like you're flying over Vietnam here.
Yeah.
Where would you start?
Piedmont.
Where would you start? That sucks. I guess you need a little bit more information from wheelchair guy. Is like, where would they have? Where would they have started?
Ernest.
Ernest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The guy with the wheelchair story. Yeah. But like, I'm seeing right now that there looks like this thing might have tides, like a low tide and high tide.
It will. It's very likely going to be tidal because most of that's going to be brackish water, that's going to.
So if it's tidal, you're going to have roads there during the day that might not be there 4 hours
Now, listen,
later.
I can't confirm that it's tidal, but I know that a lot of those areas, when you run land between a coast and a river feature, often it is going to be tidal.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It just looks huge. And man, that's crazy.
So we'll post pictures, guys. Hey, actually, Dad, if you want to go on and put up the NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's phone number, you can also call the Augusta Sheriff's Department with any leads. You can send us messages. You can do all the things. We'll put all of this information up on Andrea Uplate and Failure to Stop on Instagram. Guys, it's the same that we talk about all the time. We do these unsolves a lot, but this one particularly.
Oh wow, Andrea, Hale Street is like 1 block from the beginning of this vast pond area, like walking distance.
I know.
Jeez.
Keep in mind, guys, There is not, as far as it, correct me if I'm wrong, everything that I can find, all the sources I look at, there's not another case of twins, unsolved, like twin disappearance or murder or whatever. This did not garner national attention. This did not garner any news at all. Now go back to what we were talking about earlier with the Masters coming along. Some of the whispers are that they did not want to, in the weeks prior to the Masters and all of this influx of tourism, taint the airwaves with missing girls, missing teenagers, possible murder. This is not something they wanted to have, out there when all this money was about to come in and all these people were about to come in. So that's kind of one of the thoughts. I don't necessarily disagree with that, to be fair. Another thought is that, while we weren't really talking about sex trafficking and these kinds of things at that time, in 1990, it wasn't really on our radar, right? But it was occurring, and it was definitely occurring in Augusta, with Atlanta being a hub. So a place, we talk about it now because we know more now, but like the Super Bowl, whatever, when you have these big events with all these tourists and it really spikes, there's spikes in the trafficking realm. This would have happened. This was going on at that time, at the Masters, and people would be trafficked, and then Atlanta would be the hub, and then sprout out from there. So to be fair, and as terrible as it sounds, I know the family has heard this kind of thing. I've read about it a lot, but I think that the idea of them being alive at this point would maybe be if that's what happened. I know that could have happened. I just really think this was more closer to home. I think this was the John James situation.
John James situation, which is, so sad. I mean, these, especially just coming off of Father's Day weekend. I mean, I nothing worse than I hate than just a father that would allow their daughters.
He was never even a father to them. You know what I mean? He's technically their
but I mean, you're still a father, and you allow one of your homies, this James character or whatever, the people that get away with some shit like this. Like, that motherfucker knows. I'll tell you right now, James knows. I mean, he's got his ear down in this. John, he's got his ear down on the streets. They fucking know. He fucking knows, man. And that sucks. That sucks.
But look, like we say every time, if you
I hate it.
Lived in or around that area at the time, and any of this sounds familiar or whatever, always call. Always give a tip when you can. Give any kind of information you have. But we'll put all those numbers up.
We need to get Imperial Girl down there on the case.
Right? She's not far from there. So, guys, moving forward, next week is our 1 year for Nightshift celebration. It's going to be a party. We have to do something. Maybe we'll wear party hats. We have
Andrea's going to wear tassels
on my ears.
Yeah.
We talked about a pretty cool idea for a guest. We'll see if that happens or not for next week. If you guys have crazy, cool, fun ideas that we will actually do,
I want to surprise you with a Jim Terry.
Yeah, we'll create 1 year of Nightshift. Yeah, please, let's not do that.
I'll get you Jim Terry back on. Happy anniversary, baby.
Now, Drew said that he's a subscriber of ours.
Got Jim Terry on my mind. Listen, the dude's entertaining as shit. He's got entertainment down.
Drew said that Jim is a subscriber of Failure to Stop.
Drew is like John in the story you just told. He could say he's got dementia. He's old. He could say anything he wants.
Drew, fight him.
Before we go, let me read a quick comment I have about Drew, since he's in the chats. Currently, this is from an avid listener, Liz Marie. Now, listen, guys, it sucks because we have so many platforms: Discord, Instagram, my personal Instagram, Failure to Stop's Instagram. Let's go. It takes me forever to figure out who sent me what and where they sent it.
Yeah.
But I know I have this, and I looked it up at the beginning of the night, but then I turned off my daggone Wi-Fi. This is a great, let's see here. Liz, how do you spell Liz? L-I-Z, right?
L-I-Z, M-A-R-I-E. Her thing is like
Liz,
a black and blue.
What did you send this to me in, Liz? Son of a gun. Hang on, let's go. Let's see here. Liz. Liz Marie. Oh, she did send me messages on Failure to Stop, but it's not that message. So it must be under Eric Tansey. Fill in for me for just a second, Andrea.
Yeah, guys. So again, if you do have ideas, we are putting up more reels, doing some more stuff. Got a little bit more time on our hands for some more Patreon content or the shorts on YouTube. Also, look, I've got to put the post up. I said it last week. I want you guys to do the contest with me. So like, tag a couple of friends, share it. I'll put it on Failure Stop. I'll put it on Andre Up Late. We will pick 2 winners, and 2 winners will get t-shirts. So do that. I'll put it up tomorrow, and we'll pick next week. Is a week long enough for you guys? So let's do that. We're trying to get our subscribers up, and we're trying to get our Instagram followers up to 10,000.
Yeah, we're almost at 10,000. We're almost at 10,000. It's only been a year. We're doing great. The Discord is where it's at. Yeah, I love the Discord. And I'm going to do the whole betting thing for the month of July in the Discord. So I'm going to be placing bets. And then even if you guys don't get on my bookie with our promo code, don't do it yet. Wait until July until our promo kicks off. But even if you don't do that, we can do like some, just, like some kind of like word of mouth betting, like, oh, I told you, Tansy, you were wrong. But I mean, if you got that money and you want to do it and you want to have fun, we'll do it. All right. So here,
if you're wrong.
I'll take you. I got a pond area. We can go visit. All right. So this is from Liz Marie. It says, I about spit out my water listening to you and Jay. We were off yesterday. I work. Well, I'm not going to say where she works. Every year we take cultural sensitivity. Nope. Wrong message. All right, here we go. Happy Father's Day. On a more serious note, John had all of us quite convinced that Drew had been lost at sea, so we could just get used to him being a sole host on ComCenter. Tansy, in my detective experience that I have only learned from Law and Order SVU, I ask you, please put John's action in Drew's file. It just seems like John could make Drew's untimely death look like an accident. Drew should be glad that he has such a caring fan, not to mention that John seems like the wife that would murder her husband for his life insurance money. All I'm asking is that you please make note in Drew's file. Thanks for your advice. Thank you in advance, she says. So I think she's onto something. I think John at ComCenter, Dispatcher John, could be exactly what you say. He does seem that type to me, at least on the surface. So, I could see something like that happening. And we will put that on his file. Thank you, Liz Marie, for the
plot
amazing
twist.
message.
John has logged into Drew's YouTube, and he's commenting for Drew right now.
Yeah. Also some cunt left a terrible message on Grommet Vomit podcast for my kids. Florida Ripper says that the kids can't talk right. I mean, just like
an adult.
Yes, it looks like he's like, I really wanted to like this podcast. These kids are terrible. They ask the same questions to all the guests, and it sounds like sometimes that their parents are even trying to chime in to give them help because they can't come up with questions on their own.
Because they're children?
Because they're fucking 10 years old. They're in 4th grade. Shut up. So if anybody, but that is the one
what a
review
cool
that
adult
you
that
see.
one is.
Yeah, he said so. He has to give them 1 star or something. It's their only 1-star review. But anyway, that's the review you see when you go on Podbean. So if somebody could go on there and leave another review for these kids, so that's not the only review you see, that would be awesome. So just go to Grommet Vomit and then leave us a review on Failure to Stop if you haven't done already. I assume that everybody has. We have well over almost 2,000 written reviews on iTunes. So you guys are always good about that. So, if you are consuming this content for free, being that you're not a Patreon or paid YouTube subscriber, one of the best ways to support our show without throwing down that cash is just leaving us a 5-star rating and review. And we're hitting that like and subscribe button on YouTube. It's too easy. And that keeps Andrea's toenails painted every week. It was
at least 7 of them.
Yeah, she's only gonna. So anyway, and then also make sure, even if you're in the YouTube, go back and make sure that you have the automatic downloads on your podcast, because this is a podcast and not a YouTube channel. And so all of the money that we make from this comes from podcast. Everything that we make on YouTube is just little bonus money that we use to give back to the people, usually with something. But go make sure that you hit that automatic download on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you consume your podcast. That would be great. And we've got John added to the file. So I think for the new 1 year episode, Andre will also have a new camera out.
I was supposed to have it today. It'll be next week.
It'll be fine. It's going to be, it's, whatever. 1 year. It's what a better, I can't think of a better time to roll out a new camera than the 1 year anniversary. I'm excited for it. What are we going to drink that night? You want to
coordinate something?
You want to get drunk with me on that show? We haven't been drunk.
Well, that was the Jim Terry episode.
That's the last time we did together. Should get drunk on the show together. Damn, your mom's in town though.
That's true. Yeah, mom's in town. Or she
tell mom
be.
to watch the kids. Tell mom to watch the kids. You're getting drunk in your bedroom all night. But yeah, let's do some champs. You want to do some champs?
That'd be fun.
Some bubbly.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
We'll see what happens. All right, guys. Greg in the chat says, utilize all that extra memory on your phone. If your phone is low on storage, erase photos of your kids. Download the podcast. Greg.
Right, Greg.
Damn, you are. Greg is on it. Greg is on it. Still wearing that mask in 2023. He's on it though. I'm all in. Fulkinator. Sorry, Carly.
We could do a Q&A maybe. That could be fun. Like an interaction situation.
No, I don't want to answer any of these people's questions. Fuck them. I'm just kidding. I love all you guys, but I know what Fulkinator would ask. And the answer is 5 inches. Talking about the size of my middle finger. It's 5 inches. 5 inches long. Solid 5. Carly says he must feel better being hard on kids 40 years younger than him. We're good. Yes. What a piece of shit. We can turn this guy into a Tuesday episode if you want to. Yeah, that would be great. I mean,
yeah,
it would take some detective work because it's like Florida Ripper 69 or something like that. I don't know what the call sign was there, but it's a very funny read if you're into it. But yeah, what a douchebag indeed. Because mainly, have you listened to those kids' show? They do a phenomenal job, and it's so mindless and thoughtless that like it's pure to hear these like pro athletes talk about corn dogs and farts and who their childhood like what their favorite music is. I mean, it's 30 minutes of like mindless joy for it's for kids. It's not even for adults. So this guy's a fucking butthead. But anyway, well, our thoughts and prayers go out to the Submariner. We have last call tomorrow, which we'll be covering in the Submariner. The Submariners. We'll be talking about Hunter Biden and the new charges out on him. We got a lot of stuff to cover in last call tomorrow. That show has just gotten so easy to do. By the way, if you haven't caught up on episode 3 of our Daniel Holtzclaw case, we've actually had like investigators and people reach out to us on behalf of that project. So I think we'll see a little bit more coming out of that project later on down the road, but that's definitely something you should go check out. I don't know. The second episode was good. First episode, I mean, whatever, but the third episode was a banger for sure. And we've gotten a lot of information about that. So if you're in, this is a case that, like Anad Saeed, when you listen to it, you're going to have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But if you really dig down into it, and I did the Anad Saeed, listen, I was like, yeah, right. Let me see. There's no evidence that I can find that this kid did anything wrong. And it's the same way with the Daniel Holtzclaw case. Every avenue that I go down where I'm like, yeah, fuck him, I got him now. I don't have it. The evidence isn't there. And for a jury, and the jury's even coming out and saying that the only reason they did it was because the media and the media headlines, which was vaginal DNA, which was just not true. There was no vaginal DNA found, period. So, but a great case. But this was a case. I kind of want to go to Augusta.
I know.
I really
And
wanted to
prayers
go to
the
Augusta when I
Millbrook
thought it was a
family, my
pond.
goodness.
When I thought it was a pond, I wanted to go. But now that I see that it is not a pond, that is a wildlife sanctuary of everything that wants to hurt you. It's like a little Australia. That's what that is. Gators, snakes, tornadoes. It looks like they got a little flash flooding. That looks like a heinous place to
Well, I certainly hope that
for a butt.
while mom is still alive, they can find, have some answers here and figure this out. Because my goodness.
Yeah, me too.
It sounds like it's right there, just right there.
I think it all lies
there.
with this John and what's the 12-year-old that's in prison. Maybe we can talk to him.
Well, yeah, Ernest Vaughn. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, anyway, my last piece on this is that family says they do feel a little bit more hopeful now because finally some eyes are on the case. More podcasts are picking it up. More articles are being written about it. So hopefully it's gotten steam and, new breath again. And, maybe that will. Maybe we now know that we have these capabilities now. If we reach out to a few people and other shows reach out to other people and, who's to say? But
who's to say?
We'll see.
Well, great. Another great show. Millbrook twins. Really good show. And I love those mysteries. And we're excited for next week. We'll see you guys next week for our 1-year anniversary right here on Failure to Stop True Crime Tuesdays. For myself and Andrea, up late. Guns up. Giddy up.
Good night, y'all.